The galaxy had never been truly quiet. Humanity had spread its reach among the stars, claiming planets, building cities in orbit, and exploring systems that no one had ever dreamed of reaching. But with expansion came conflict. Alien civilizations, vast and powerful, watched humanity with a mix of fear, curiosity, and hostility. Among these civilizations, the most formidable was the Zetherian Empire, known across systems for its psychic warriors and near-impenetrable fleets. On a remote human command station orbiting Krypton 9, a lone figure prepared for departure. His name was never spoken aloud. He was only known as Ghost, a soldier who moved like a shadow and struck like lightning. Legends of his missions traveled faster than starships, whispered among pilots and captains. Ghost had infiltrated enemy fortresses, stolen intelligence, and vanished without a trace. No Zetherian ship, no alien weapon, no trap could stop him. Ghost's face, scarred and cold, stared at the holographic map projected in front of him. The target was a Zetherian fleet stationed near the shattered nebula, a region of jagged asteroid fields and dangerous radiation storms. Intelligence suggested that the fleet carried a weapon capable of destroying entire human colonies. The Command Council had little faith in conventional forces to stop it. Ghost was their only hope. "You're sure about this?" asked Commander Lyra, her voice calm but edged with concern. She had briefed him countless times, yet each mission seemed more dangerous than the last. "I work best alone," Ghost said, his voice flat, almost mechanical. He did not need encouragement, and he did not seek it. Lyra nodded. "Remember, Ghost, if you fail—" "I won't fail," he interrupted, turning away from the hologram. Failure was a word he had long forgotten. Ghost had survived battles that would have killed whole platoons. He had no illusions about danger. He simply did not fear it. The shuttle launched quietly, slipping past the station's sensors as if it had never existed. Ghost's eyes were fixed on the stars, each flicker of light a potential threat. He did not speak. He did not think beyond the mission. In the emptiness of space, silence was a shield, and Ghost wielded it with unmatched precision. But the Zetherians were not ordinary enemies. Among their ranks was Princess Elira, the Empire's psychic heir. She was young, sharp, and deadly, with abilities that few humans could even begin to comprehend. She could sense movement across light years, read thoughts before they were fully formed, and manipulate emotions and actions subtly, almost invisibly. When intelligence detected Ghost's approach, Elira felt a presence she could not ignore. Somewhere in the silent corridors of her flagship, she paused. Her eyes, violet and piercing, fixed on a single point in the stars. "The Ghost has come," she whispered. Her voice was calm, but inside, a thrill coursed through her. She did not yet know why, but she sensed a connection, a thread of fate linking her to the human soldier who had never been caught. Meanwhile, Ghost navigated the dense asteroid fields surrounding the shattered nebula. Sensors beeped intermittently as rocky debris tumbled through space. Every move had to be precise. One miscalculation could shred the shuttle into fragments. He dodged massive asteroids with smooth, calculated adjustments, his fingers moving over the controls with flawless rhythm. Years of training, instinct, and experience guided him. He reached the edge of the Zetherian fleet as darkness fell across the nebula. Massive warships floated like silent predators, their hulls glinting faintly in the distant starlight. Ghost watched, analyzing patterns, movements, and patrol rotations. There were hundreds of ships, but he saw the gaps, the weak points. He always saw the gaps. A sudden tremor went through his mind. A faint voice, soft and alien, brushed against his thoughts. It was not audible, not real, yet it was there. Ghost froze, every sense alert. He had never felt anything like this before. The voice was distant, almost playful, yet it carried weight as if it were trying to guide him. He shook his head. "Focus," he muttered. Ghost trusted instinct over illusion, but even instinct had its limits. The voice remained subtle, like a whisper in a dream he could not recall. Ghost activated the stealth systems on the shuttle. It became invisible to sensors, a ghost in the void. He moved silently among the Zetherian ships, scanning for the command vessel that intelligence had marked as the carrier of the weapon. Every crevice, every shadow, every gap in the fleet was potential cover. Ghost was meticulous, patient, and precise. Hours passed. Ghost slipped past patrol drones, avoided scanning pulses, and infiltrated the outer defenses of the flagship. He landed in the lower maintenance bays where few Zetherians would think to look. The corridors were cold, metallic, and silent. Ghost's boots made no sound. Every step was measured, deliberate. He had learned to become part of the environment itself, a shadow moving among shadows. And then he felt it again. The presence. It was stronger now, closer. A warmth, a thought, a pull he could not resist. He turned sharply, scanning the hallways with heightened senses, but the corridors were empty. No one moved. No one watched. And yet the feeling persisted, as if someone had already touched the edges of his soul without leaving a mark. Ghost paused and allowed a brief moment of clarity. "Who?" he whispered under his breath. But there was no answer, only the hum of the ship and the faint vibrations beneath his feet. He pressed forward, reaching the inner chamber where the weapon was stored. It was a sphere of strange metal, rotating slowly, pulsing with an energy that felt alive. Ghost approached cautiously, analyzing the locks and energy shields. His fingers worked quickly, bypassing codes, disarming traps. Each movement precise, calculated, and flawless. He had faced worse odds before, and yet something about this mission felt different. A subtle vibration coursed through the air. Ghost stopped, his instincts screaming. Across the room, in the corner where no human could see, a shadow shifted. It was barely perceptible, almost unreal. Ghost's hand went to his side, ready for action, but the shadow did not move. It simply observed. And then in the corner of his mind, the voice spoke again. Clearer this time. Not a whisper. A sentence, simple yet profound. "I already hold a part of you." Ghost froze, understanding more than he wanted to. This was no ordinary enemy. This presence was powerful, alien, and aware. Something had reached him before he even reached it. It was not merely observation. It was a claim, a subtle bond that left him unsettled yet strangely alert. He shook off the thought, focusing on the task. Humanity depended on him. The weapon had to be disabled. Every step mattered. Every decision could mean life or death. And yet somewhere deep in the shadows of his mind, a seed had been planted, a seed of connection, of curiosity, of something he could not name. As Ghost prepared the final sequence to disable the weapon, he felt the presence again, a silent observer. He did not know who or what it was. He did not know the alien princess had already claimed a part of his soul. All he knew was that he had survived countless battles, infiltrated countless enemies, and yet this was something new. And for the first time in his life, Ghost felt the faintest brush of uncertainty. Not fear, not doubt, something different. Something that could change everything. The machine hummed, the energy fluctuated, and Ghost prepared to complete his mission. Somewhere in the shadows, a figure watched, patient, calm, and knowing. The hunt had begun, but the hunter was already connected to the hunted in ways neither could yet understand. The stars outside the nebula glittered, silent witnesses to the beginning of a story that would span worlds, test the limits of humanity, and redefine the meaning of courage, loyalty, and the soul. And Ghost, the soldier who had never been caught, stepped into the shadows with the weight of fate pressing upon him, unaware that he was no longer entirely his own. The shattered nebula was alive with motion, though it seemed calm from afar. Ghost's mission had succeeded. The weapon had been disabled, but there was no time to celebrate. The Zetherian fleet had detected his presence. Red alert sirens echoed through the hulls of the massive ships as hundreds of alien warriors mobilized to hunt the intruder. Ghost knew the odds were against him. One soldier alone could not outrun an entire fleet. But Ghost was not just any soldier. He was a ghost in the shadows, a nightmare in the minds of his enemies. He moved like wind across the stars, unseen and deadly. Inside his shuttle, Ghost plotted his escape route. The asteroid fields were dangerous, but they were his only chance. Sensors showed patrol drones sweeping through every corridor of space between him and safe territory. He activated stealth mode, letting the shuttle fade into invisibility. The stars outside blurred as he twisted and turned through the nebula, weaving a path that only someone with his instincts could navigate. Yet the presence he had felt aboard the Zetherian flagship was still with him. A soft pull in his mind, a whisper in his thoughts guiding him. Ghost resisted. He trusted himself and his training above all else. But the influence was subtle, weaving into his decisions without forcing them, like a shadow brushing against his soul. Meanwhile, on the Zetherian flagship, Princess Elira's eyes glowed faintly. She sat in the psychic chamber, her mind stretching across the void of space. She could feel him. feel the patterns of his movement, and sense the fragments of his soul that had already been claimed. So clever, she murmured almost to herself. But so predictable. Back in the nebula, Ghost dodged a swarm of patrol drones. He moved like liquid, slipping between asteroids that would have crushed a lesser pilot. Each moment was a test, a puzzle of timing and reflexes. He could hear the soft hum of the drone's engines, feel the vibrations through the shuttle floor, and anticipate their movements before they were fully executed. His mind and body were perfectly synchronized, a living weapon of survival. Then the psychic influence whispered again. Not a command, but a suggestion. Turn left, take the narrow path. Ghost hesitated, his instincts screaming that the path was risky. But he followed the suggestion, and a fleet of drones passed harmlessly behind him. The realization hit him. Something or someone was guiding him. The thought was unnerving. Ghost had always relied on himself. Dependence on another, especially an alien, was not part of his nature. And yet he could not deny the effectiveness. He pressed on, ignoring the creeping curiosity. Survival came first. Everything else came second. Hours passed as he weaved through the deadly asteroid fields. The fleet was relentless. Zetherian frigates adjusted their courses, scanners flicking with precision, looking for anomalies. Ghost had to think like them, anticipate their logic, and stay one step ahead. Every decision mattered. Every delay could mean death. Finally, Ghost emerged near a dark planet on the edge of the nebula. Its surface was rough, covered in jagged mountains and deep canyons. He needed somewhere to hide, to repair his shuttle, and to understand the strange connection pulling at his mind. The planet's atmosphere was thin, almost toxic, but it offered cover. He descended carefully, landing in a canyon where the shadows swallowed him completely. Inside the shuttle, he checked the systems. Nothing critical was damaged, though the engines had taken minor hits from asteroid debris. As he worked, he felt it again, the presence. Stronger now, closer. He closed his eyes and focused. The voice was no longer a whisper, but a thread of thought entwined with his own. Rest, recover, trust. Ghost's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the awareness that he was no longer entirely alone in his mind. He had fought countless enemies, faced death dozens of times, and yet this was something new. Something alien, something powerful. Outside, the skies darkened as storm clouds gathered over the jagged landscape. Lightning danced across the peaks, casting eerie shadows. Ghost prepared for the night, setting up camouflage shields around the shuttle. He had learned that in survival, preparation was everything. Even with psychic guidance, he could not rely solely on an invisible hand. As night fell, the visions began. Ghost dreamed, though he did not sleep deeply. He saw a figure in the distance, a woman, alien and radiant, with eyes that seemed to look directly into his soul. She did not speak, yet her presence was undeniable. When he awoke, the feeling lingered, a faint echo in his mind. The following day, Zetherian scouts landed on the planet, searching for any trace of the human intruder. Ghost had anticipated this. He moved silently, avoiding detection by shadowing canyons and using the environment as his ally. Each step, each decision was guided by a combination of instinct and the subtle influence he could not fully understand. Hours later, he encountered the first direct confrontation. A patrol of Zetherian soldiers rounded a bend, scanning the canyon with energy weapons raised. Ghost froze, calculating. His mind raced through probabilities. The psychic presence whispered a suggestion: use the rocks, make them fall. Without hesitation, Ghost triggered a controlled detonation nearby. Rocks and debris crashed down, cutting off the patrol's path. Chaos erupted, but Ghost was gone before the soldiers could react. The Zetherians cursed, but none saw him vanish into the shadows. Later, as he rested on a high cliff overlooking the canyon, he finally allowed himself a moment of reflection. The connection with the psychic presence was undeniable. It was not just observation, it was influence, subtle and deliberate. Ghost had faced countless enemies, but none had touched him like this. The alien princess had already seized a fragment of his soul, and he did not even know why. He was human, yet something alien now guided him. It was unnerving, but also strangely empowering. His reflexes felt sharper, his instincts clearer, and his decisions more precise. He realized that he was no longer just a soldier relying on training and experience. Something else had joined him, a force he could neither see nor fully understand. Night fell again and the alien presence strengthened. Ghost felt it more intensely, as if the very air around him carried its weight. For the first time, he allowed himself to acknowledge curiosity. Who was she? Why had she reached for him? And what did she want? A soft hum echoed in his mind, and suddenly he understood the danger. The hunt was far from over. The Zetherians would not give up, and now he carried not only his life but a silent bond with a being whose motives were mysterious. Survival meant more than skill. It meant understanding, strategy, and trust in something beyond himself. The night was filled with shadows, and Ghost moved through them like water through cracks in stone. He could hear the distant hum of ships in orbit, sense the movement of enemies, and feel the subtle pull of the alien presence guiding him. The hunter had become the hunted, but the rules of the game were changing. By dawn, Ghost had planned his next move. He would leave the planet, but not before testing the influence that had taken root in his mind. The connection was strange, alien, and unsettling, yet it gave him an advantage he could not ignore. He activated the shuttle, its engines whispering to life. As he ascended from the canyon, he cast one last glance at the planet below. Somewhere in the shadows, the princess watched, silent and patient. She had claimed a part of him without his knowledge, and now the dance between hunter and hunted had begun. In the emptiness of space, Ghost felt both alive and uncertain. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, yet he moved forward, guided by instincts, skill, and a mysterious force entwined with his very soul. The chase would continue, but he was ready. He had survived worse, and now, for the first time, survival meant embracing the unknown. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, and Ghost, the soldier who had never been caught, vanished into the shadows once more. But this time, he was not just a soldier. He was a soul marked by destiny, guided by a presence he could not yet see, and hunted by enemies who would soon learn that no human could be underestimated. Ghost drifted through the void aboard his shuttle, the stars stretching endlessly around him like frozen fire. Each pulse of the engines reminded him of the fragile thread connecting life and death, yet he felt strangely calm. The influence of the alien presence in his mind had grown stronger. It was no longer a whisper in the shadows. It was a thread pulling at him, guiding his decisions, sharpening his instincts. At first he resisted. He was Ghost, a soldier forged in isolation, trained to trust no one, not even the universe itself. Yet he could not deny the subtle advantages the presence offered. Maneuvers that would normally take calculation now felt instinctive. Sensors and readings aligned perfectly without conscious effort. It was as if some unseen hand was reaching into his mind, helping him survive. He tried to push the thought aside. Survival came first. Trust, he reminded himself, was a luxury he could not afford. But the dreams began that night uninvited and vivid. In his sleep, he found himself standing in a vast alien hall. The walls shimmered with colors that did not exist in human sight, and the floor seemed to shift beneath him like liquid metal. In the distance, a figure approached, tall, graceful, with eyes that glowed like violet stars. It was the alien princess Elira. She did not speak, yet her presence filled the hall with an unspoken command. Ghost felt a tug in his chest, a strange connection that he could not name. "You are clever, human," her voice finally came, not aloud, but inside his mind. Clear, calm, and commanding. "But you are more than clever, you are necessary." Ghost did not respond. He had never felt words without sound, a voice without lips, a command without threat. Yet it was neither threat nor plea. It was truth, a statement he could not ignore. The dream shifted, and suddenly he was back on his shuttle, the hum of the engines grounding him. The memory of her voice lingered, embedding itself into his thoughts. He realized with a start that some part of his decision-making, his intuition, was no longer entirely his own. The alien princess had claimed a fragment of his soul. He was still Ghost, still independent, but something new had taken root within him. Days passed as he navigated the vast emptiness of space, avoiding Zetherian patrols and moving toward human-controlled systems. The psychic bond persisted, subtle but persistent. Sometimes it guided him in life-saving ways, directing his shuttle around asteroid clusters, warning him of enemy sensors, enhancing his reflexes. Other times it was disorienting, a faint voice suggesting paths that seemed impossible or dangerous. Ghost had learned to listen without surrendering control, balancing instinct with influence. During one tense maneuver, a patrol fleet appeared, ships larger than anything Ghost had ever seen. They moved in a coordinated pattern, scanning every corner of space with precision. Ghost's hands moved over the controls like extensions of his mind, following suggestions he could not fully understand. The fleet converged, and yet, by some mixture of his skill and the silent guidance of Elira, he slipped through, vanishing into the darkness once more. It was during moments like these that Ghost began to question the nature of the bond. Why had the princess chosen him? What part of his soul had she claimed, and for what purpose? He had fought countless enemies and survived impossible odds, yet this was different. He was no longer merely a soldier executing orders. He was a participant in a silent alliance with a being whose motives were mysterious, alien, and perhaps benevolent. He paused aboard his shuttle one night, staring at the stars. Memories of his past missions surfaced. Missions where he had faced insurmountable odds, survived ambushes, and walked away from death itself. And yet none of those experiences compared to the presence now intertwined with his being. The realization was both unsettling and oddly empowering. He could feel his mind expanding, senses sharpening, instincts aligning in ways he had never known. The bond was not without its price. Ghost noticed subtle changes in himself, emotions that he could not fully explain, instincts that bordered on precognition, and a faint warmth in his chest whenever he sensed Elira's influence. It was not weakness, but it was unfamiliar, and yet he could not deny that it made him more capable, more alive, more unstoppable. As he neared a human-controlled system, communication channels crackled to life. Commander Lyra's voice came through, urgent and tense. "Ghost, status report. The Zetherians have deployed reinforcements. We can't hold the colony without you. What's your position?" Ghost adjusted the controls, plotting his approach. "On my way. Encountered some complications," he replied, choosing his words carefully. He did not mention the alien influence, not yet. Some truths were too dangerous to reveal. The fleet ahead was massive, dozens of human ships awaiting reinforcements. Ghost's arrival was crucial, not just for survival, but for the defense of the colony. He felt the psychic presence nudge him again, suggesting a path through the asteroid belts that would allow him to arrive undetected. Following the guidance, Ghost threaded his shuttle between enormous rocks and debris, evading enemy sensors and patrol ships. His heart beat steadily, calm in the chaos, guided by instincts that were both his and not entirely his own. He could feel Elira's presence like a shadow brushing against his consciousness, subtle yet undeniable. Finally, he reached the outskirts of the system. The human fleet was engaged in skirmishes, desperately holding off Zetherian attacks. Ghost slipped past the lines, landing in the heart of the battle zone with surgical precision. Explosions erupted around him, metal and fire tearing through the void. But Ghost moved as if untouched, neutralizing threats with quiet efficiency. It was during this engagement that the bond became unmistakably clear. In the heat of battle, Ghost anticipated enemy movements before sensors detected them, executing maneuvers that saved countless human lives. Every decision felt guided yet instinctual, as though two minds, one human, one alien, worked as one. He realized then that the princess's influence was not domination but collaboration. She had not enslaved him. She had enhanced him, creating a silent alliance of mind and will. After the battle, Ghost stood aboard a human destroyer, watching the stars. Ships burned in the distance, the cost of war laid bare. Yet humanity had survived, and much of that survival was due to him, his skill, his instinct, and the silent guidance of a presence he could not yet fully comprehend. He allowed himself a moment of reflection. The connection was strange, powerful, and disconcerting, but it had given him an advantage he could not ignore. He was stronger, sharper, faster than ever before, yet still human. Still Ghost. Still free. Then the voice came again, clearer than before. "You are ready." Ghost understood instinctively what it meant. The path ahead would be more dangerous, more complex, and more personal. He was being drawn into a story that spanned worlds, tested the limits of human ingenuity, and challenged the very essence of his being. He knew one thing. Survival was no longer just about skill. It was about trust, understanding, and the bond he could not yet name. The alien princess had claimed a part of him, yes, but in doing so, She had also awakened something else, a force within him, a potential that even he had not realized. As Ghost prepared for the next stage of his journey, he realized the truth: the hunt was far from over. He was no longer simply a soldier being pursued. He was a soul bound in silence to a force that was both alien and powerful, a force that would shape the fate of humans and aliens alike. And for the first time in his life, Ghost felt a quiet sense of purpose, a spark of hope, and the undeniable thrill of the unknown. The stars stretched endlessly before him, and Ghost, the soldier who had survived impossible odds, moved forward with new clarity. He had become more than human, yet still human. He was Ghost. And the galaxy would soon learn that no human could be underestimated, especially one whose soul had been touched by something extraordinary. The bond was silent, subtle, and unbreakable, and it would guide him through trials that no soldier had ever faced, shaping the destiny of entire worlds. Ghost drifted in the darkness of space, the stars stretching endlessly around him. His shuttle had carried him far beyond the human fleet, past systems scarred by war, into regions no human dared to explore. And yet even in this isolation he felt the presence, the alien force that had intertwined with his soul. Elira, the Zetherian princess. She had claimed a fragment of him without his knowledge, and now that bond guided his every instinct. He had survived impossible odds before, but this was different. The galaxy itself seemed to conspire, shaping events around him. He could feel Elira's consciousness brushing against his own, subtle yet undeniable. Not control, not domination, but a quiet guidance that sharpened his reflexes, focused his mind, and strengthened his resolve. Suddenly, the bond tugged harder than ever. Ghost's shuttle veered instinctively, narrowly avoiding a meteor cluster spinning through space. His hands moved with preternatural speed, adjustments precise, almost impossible. He realized with a jolt that Elira's influence had grown stronger. She was not far away, she was here, reaching out through the void. Ghost closed his eyes briefly and allowed the connection to expand. For the first time he let himself sense her presence fully. It was not intrusive. It was not threatening, it was deliberate, calculated, and strangely calm. A voice inside his mind, yet as clear as any spoken word, said, "Meet me." Ghost hesitated. He had always worked alone, trusted no one, and feared nothing. Yet this was no ordinary encounter. He knew the hunt was over, but only in part. A confrontation awaited, and it would test his mind, body, and spirit in ways he had never experienced. The next instant, the shuttle's sensors detected a nearby vessel, sleek, silent, and unlike any human or Zetherian ship he had ever seen. The hull shimmered faintly, almost blending with the stars. Ghost's heart did not race. He had learned the importance of calm in the face of danger. He docked carefully, entering a chamber that seemed impossibly large, lit by a soft violet glow. And there she was. Elira, the alien princess, standing with a poise that was both graceful and commanding. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly with the psychic energy that connected them. For a moment, Ghost did nothing but study her. She was beautiful, yes, but her presence was more than aesthetic. It was power, intelligence, and calculation embodied in a single form. "You've survived far longer than I expected," Elira said, her voice soft but resonant within his mind. "You are clever, human. I can feel it. But now we must speak openly." Ghost studied her carefully. "Why me? Why reach into my mind? Why this?" His voice was calm, controlled, but the questions weighed heavy. He had fought many battles, but none of them prepared him for this. The human soldier brought to question not only his survival, but the nature of his own soul. Elira stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "Because the weapon you disabled was only part of a larger threat, something ancient, something neither of us could face alone. When I touched your soul, it was not to control you, it was to prepare you, to make you ready." Ghost narrowed his eyes. Preparation, guidance, influence, all true, yet none explained the unease he felt. "And if I refuse?" he asked quietly. "If I walk away?" A small, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips. "Then you would be hunted endlessly, not just by my empire, but by the forces that seek to destroy both our worlds. You would survive only as long as instinct allowed, and instinct alone would not be enough." Ghost weighed her words. She did not threaten him, yet the truth in them was undeniable. He had survived countless missions, but never one like this. The galaxy had shifted and he was at the center. Perhaps this alliance, strange and uncertain, was the only way forward. "Then tell me everything," he said at last, his voice steady. "No half-truths. No deception. I need to know what I'm facing." Elira nodded and the chamber shifted. The walls dissolved into visions of stars, planets, and massive structures orbiting in distant systems. She guided his mind, showing him glimpses of an ancient Zetherian war machine, a construct so powerful it could destroy entire civilizations. Humanity alone could not defeat it. Zetherians alone could not stop it. Together, perhaps they could. "The weapon you destroyed," Elira continued, "was only a fraction of the machine's power. It can manipulate energy on a scale beyond imagination. Planets, moons, even stars, all could be at risk. I cannot destroy it alone, and you cannot fight it alone. That is why I reached for your soul, human. I did not take it. I borrowed it, and now we must act together." Ghost absorbed the vision, the enormity of the threat sinking in. The machine was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Entire fleets, even alien powers, would struggle against it. Yet he could see a way, subtle, clever, and human. He understood tactics, deception, and improvisation in ways that even an alien mind might not anticipate. "You want me to trust you," he said, almost as a statement, "and in return I must trust us?" Elira inclined her head slightly. "Yes, trust is necessary, but so is action. Time is limited and enemies are closing in on every side. We have no choice but to cooperate. Together we can stop the war machine before it awakens fully." Ghost considered the words. He had always worked alone, but now the stakes were not personal glory or survival. They were the survival of countless lives across multiple worlds. And if he refused, no one would survive. "Then we work together," he said finally. "But make no mistake, I do not surrender my will." "You will not need to," Elira replied, her voice soft yet resonant with certainty. "Your will is strong. That is why I chose you. Your human spirit, it is formidable." With their agreement made, the alliance took shape. Ghost and Elira moved to her ship's command center, a place where reality itself seemed to bend with psychic energy. Elira guided him through simulations, teaching him to anticipate the war machine's defenses, navigate alien traps, and use both human and Zetherian knowledge to their advantage. Ghost learned quickly, adapting with instinct and intellect, and Elira marveled at his resilience and creativity. As they trained, the bond between them deepened, not as captor and captive, not as human and alien, but as two beings aligned by necessity, survival, and respect. Ghost began to sense her emotions, intentions, and subtle guidance without losing his own autonomy. Elira began to understand the ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination of humanity, traits that even her empire often underestimated. Days passed in preparation. Intelligence reports confirmed the movement of the ancient war machine, and Zetherian fleets moved to defend it. Time was against them, yet Ghost and Elira refined their strategy, combining human improvisation with alien psychic precision. They were an unlikely pair, yet effective. Finally, the moment came to depart. Elira's ship slipped past patrols, moving silently toward the coordinates of the war machine. Ghost's shuttle followed, integrated seamlessly into her vessel's systems, his human intuition complementing her alien power. The bond that had started as subtle influence was now a conscious collaboration. They moved as one, a fusion of human cunning and alien foresight. As the stars stretched endlessly before them, Ghost felt a quiet thrill. He had survived battles, ambushes, and impossible missions before, but this was different. He was no longer alone. He was no longer merely a soldier. He was a part of something greater, an alliance that might save entire civilizations. And Elira, the alien princess who had touched his soul, guided him not as a master, but as an equal. The galaxy awaited them, dangerous and uncertain, but together, they were stronger than either could be alone. The alliance had been formed, not by trust alone, but by necessity, courage, and the recognition of strength in one another. And as their ship slipped silently through the void, moving toward the heart of the looming threat, Ghost realized that the war would test not just skill but spirit, loyalty, and the very essence of what it meant to be human. The shadows of space were deep and dangers lurked at every turn, but for the first time Ghost felt that he was not merely surviving. He was part of a force capable of shaping the future. The hunt had become a mission. The hunted had become a partner. and the galaxy itself would tremble at what humanity, guided by courage and joined by an unlikely ally, could accomplish. The planet Zarathus glowed under the light of its 3 suns, casting a golden sheen across the sprawling cities of crystal and steel. Towers rose high into the sky, their tips reflecting the sunlight in dazzling patterns. The air buzzed with energy, both from the alien machinery and from the quiet hum of life. In the center of it all stood the grand palace home to Queen Lyra, the ruler of this proud civilization. She was known across the stars for her wisdom, her strength, and her unwavering control. No challenge had ever shaken her confidence until now. A warning signal echoed through the palace halls. Lyra's sharp violet eyes focused on the screen before her. The neighboring planet, Varkon, had been massing troops at an alarming rate. Their intentions were clear. They wanted Zarathus under their control. The Queen's advisors buzzed around her, debating strategies and proposing military options. Yet Lyra remained calm. She had faced threats before and she had always overcome them. Still, something about this situation felt different. That evening, the palace received an unexpected visitor. A human ship, sleek and silver, descended through the skies, landing gracefully on the ceremonial platform. The humans were a rare presence in this part of the galaxy. While they had established peaceful colonies, most alien species underestimated them. To many, humans were fragile, impulsive, and unprepared for the vast dangers of space. From the ship emerged a single figure, tall, steady, and composed. Captain Daniel Hart stepped onto Zarathus's soil with measured confidence. His suit, simple compared to the ornate armor of alien envoys, seemed almost modest, but his eyes, a deep blue, shone with intelligence and quiet determination. The palace guards regarded him warily, their strange, multi-jointed limbs ready to defend their queen. Lyra descended from her throne, her regal presence filling the room. She had seen many diplomats, soldiers, and emissaries, yet none of them carried the calm authority Daniel exuded. She sized him up silently, her mind racing through every report she had ever received about humans. "Captain Hart," she said, her voice smooth but edged with authority. "You are far from Earth. Tell me why you have come to Zarathus." Daniel bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he had learned to use with alien cultures. "Your Majesty, I come as a messenger and an ally. The Varkon threat is growing, and Earth believes in peaceful solutions. We have strategies and technologies that may help your planet withstand any attack." Lyra's eyes narrowed. Peaceful solutions? She had led armies through countless battles. She had faced aggression head-on and survived. Could this human, small and unassuming, really offer anything meaningful? Before she could respond, a sudden tremor shook the palace. The sky outside darkened as Varkon ships appeared on the horizon, faster and more numerous than anyone had predicted. Alarms rang throughout the palace. Lyra's advisors shouted orders, but confusion spread. The Varkon had come with a force meant to intimidate and overwhelm. Without hesitation, Daniel moved to the tactical console beside Lyra. His fingers flew across the controls, inputting calculations and predicting attack patterns. He spoke calmly, clearly, to both the human crew and the Zarathian guards. "Their main fleet will strike the eastern perimeter in 6 minutes. If we reinforce the shields there and deploy interceptor drones in a sweeping pattern, we can force them into a bottleneck. Their speed will work against them." Lyra blinked. His words, simple yet precise, contained insights she had not considered. She had planned for brute force, for overwhelming the enemy with numbers. This human spoke of strategy, of patterns, of thinking like the enemy. She hesitated for only a moment before giving the order. "Do as he says. Prepare the drones and redirect power to the eastern shields." The palace erupted into motion. Alien technology, sleek and powerful, responded to Daniel's commands with a precision that impressed even Lyra. Within minutes, the Varkon ships reached the perimeter, expecting to encounter weak resistance. Instead, they were met with a trap, carefully designed using the humans' guidance combined with Zarathus's might. Ships collided, explosions lit the sky, and chaos reigned, but chaos under control. Lyra watched, her mind racing. This human, this fragile species, had changed the outcome of the first wave of attacks. She had underestimated him, and it had nearly cost her civilization dearly. But his calmness, his clarity in the middle of danger had saved countless lives. When the battle subsided, the Varkon ships retreated, leaving the skies over Zarathus scarred but safe. Lyra approached Daniel, her usual composure mixed with a hint of awe. You have skills I did not anticipate. Tell me, Captain, why should I trust humans? Why should I believe in your strength? Daniel met her gaze steadily. Because strength is not always measured by muscle or armor, Your Majesty. It is measured by courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it matters most. Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and refusing to give up. I offer more than weapons. I offer strategy, foresight, and determination. Lyra considered his words. She had never met a being who could command the respect of her advisors, who could influence her people with such clarity, and who could act decisively under pressure. Yet she also knew the politics of her world. Marriage, alliances, and agreements were tools as sharp as swords. In a bold and unexpected decision, Lyra made a proposal. Captain Hart, Earth and Zarathus may benefit from a stronger bond. I propose a union, a marriage, not out of passion but out of alliance. You would reside here among my people, and together we will prepare for the challenges to come. Daniel's brow furrowed. The idea was unusual, even by interstellar standards. But he understood the stakes. Your Majesty, if this is what is needed to protect Zarathus, I will accept, not as a gesture of weakness, but as a commitment to your people and their safety. Lyra studied him, noting the firmness in his voice. She had expected hesitation, uncertainty, perhaps even fear. Instead, she found resolve. For the first time, she questioned everything she had assumed about humans. Perhaps they were stronger than she had ever imagined, not in body, but in mind and spirit. The following days were filled with preparations for the union. Daniel learned the palace's strange customs, attended ceremonies, and navigated cultural expectations that seemed impossible to follow. Yet he adapted, using his sharp mind and calm demeanor to find solutions where others would falter. Lyra observed quietly, often from a distance. At first she watched to ensure he did not embarrass her people. But soon her observation turned into fascination. He solved problems with cleverness rather than force, guided decisions with reason rather than tradition, and inspired the palace staff with his steady confidence. One evening, as the twin moons of Zarathus rose high in the sky, Lyra walked through the palace gardens contemplating the future. Daniel was at her side, explaining a simple yet effective improvement to the palace's energy distribution system. She realized that the human before her had a strength that went beyond what she had ever known. For the first time, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Admiration mixed with curiosity. She could not yet call it affection, but it was close. And, more importantly, she could not deny that this human could be the key to Zarathus' survival. As they looked at the stars together, the threat of Varkon still looming, Lyra understood one truth clearly. She had underestimated humanity, and the consequences of that mistake could have been catastrophic. But now, with Daniel by her side, she felt a sense of hope she had not experienced in decades. Perhaps humans were not fragile. Perhaps humans were exactly what Zarathus needed, and somewhere deep within her, a quiet thought echoed, this marriage, this union, might prove far more powerful than she had ever imagined. The first part of the story closes with the bond forming between Lyra and Daniel, setting the stage for challenges, battles, and the gradual revelation of human strength in ways the universe has never seen.